So you've got that idea, right? That little spark. You think, maybe, just maybe, this could be something real, a business.
Yeah.
Well, today, we're really diving into how you actually do that. How do you take that vision and, turn it into a functioning company?
Exactly. And we're trying to make this super practical. Think of it like a roadmap.
A roadmap. Okay.
Yeah. Build from real world experiences. We've looked at a lot of sources, a lot of stories to pull out the key steps, the things you really need to think about.
Good.
From just having the idea, that moment, all the way to actually launching. The mission here is clarity, really.
Yeah.
Actionable stuff.
Okay, love it. So let's start right there. At the very beginning, you have the idea. What's the absolute first question you should ask yourself, like fundamentally?
Fundamentally, it's, does this idea actually solve a real problem for someone?
Okay. Sounds simple, but probably isn't always obvious.
It sounds obvious, but it's so critical. You have to ask, who specifically have this problem? Is it a big enough deal for them, a real pain point?
Right.
And maybe the toughest question, are they actually willing to, pay to make that problem go away?
The willingness to pay. That's the real test, isn't it?
It really is.
And it's funny how often big companies start from something personal, like Uber, right? Weren't the founders just annoyed they couldn't get a cab easily?
That's the classic story. And it's a perfect example. A personal frustration, but one that tapped into a huge, widespread issue.
So it wasn't just them being annoyed.
No, it was a systemic problem.
Yeah.
Unreliable service, unpredictable waits. Their personal pain point reflected a much bigger market need. But even if you feel that pain really strongly, you still absolutely have to validate it. You can't just assume everyone feels the same way.
So validation means what exactly?
It means doing your homework.
Yeah.
Market research, yes, but more importantly, actually talking to the people you think might be your future customers.
Okay.
Get their honest feedback. Don't just pitch them. Listen, is this really a problem for them? Will they use your solution? That's how you gauge if the idea has legs.
Right. So let's say you do that. The idea seems solid, solves a problem, people seem interested. What's the next concrete step towards making it a business?
Okay, next step is planning, getting organized. And the core of that is the business plan.
The dreaded business plan. People think it's just for investors, right?
Well, yes, it can be for investors, but honestly, it's just as much for you, the founder. It forces you to get clear.
How so?
Makes you think through all the pieces. Your mission, like, what are you really trying to do here? Your target market, who exactly are you serving?
Okay.
Then your competition. Who else is out there? How are you different? And crucially, the money side.
Yeah.
Your revenue model, how will you make money? And your cost structure, what's it going to cost to run this thing?
That sounds like a lot to figure out.
It is, but it's essential groundwork. And you need a way to kind of step back and see the whole picture, too.
Like a framework for analysis.
Exactly. Something like a SWOT analysis is super useful here. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats.
Right, I've heard of that.
It helps you see, okay, what advantages do we have? Maybe unique technology, that's a strength. What are our weaknesses? Maybe lack of funding or a small team. Then you look outside. What opportunities are there in the market? New trends, gaps, and what threats? Competitors, changing regulations, that sort of thing.
So it's internal and external.
Precisely. And really digging into competitors, not just who they are, but what they do well, where they've stumbled, and how you can genuinely differentiate yourself. That's absolutely critical.
Okay, makes sense. Now, the topic that often stops people in their tracks. Money, funding the thing. Where do you even start thinking about that?
Yeah, funding can feel overwhelming. There are a few main paths, really, and they all have pros and cons.
Like what?
Well, there's bootstrapping, basically using your own savings, maybe early revenue to grow, the big pro. You keep total control.
But the downside?
It's usually slower growth. You're limited by your own resources.
Okay. And the alternative?
Picking on investors, getting external capital. This can fuel much faster growth, obviously.
But there's always a but.
There is. Investors bring money, yes, but also expectations. They want a return on their investment. And that usually means giving up some ownership equity in your company.
So you lose some control.
You do.
Yeah.
And you're accountable to them.
And if you do decide to seek investment, pitching them, that sounds intense.
It is a skill, for sure. You need a really strong pitch deck. Clear, concise, persuasive, and crucially, backed by data.
Data's key.
Absolutely. Investors want to see the numbers, the market size, your projections, your path to actually making a profit. They need to believe in the vision, yes, but also see how they'll get their money back, and hopefully much more.
Are there other ways besides just bootstrapping or venture capital?
Oh, definitely. Grants can be amazing. That's often non-dilutive funding.
Non-dilutive meaning?
Meaning you get the cash without giving up any ownership. Free money, essentially, though it usually comes with strings attached, like specific goals you need to meet.
Okay.
And things like accelerators or incubators can be fantastic, especially for first-time founders.
Right. They offer more than just cash, don't they?
Exactly. They often provide seed funding, but also mentorship, which is huge.
Yeah.
Networking opportunities, connections, visibility. It can really accelerate your progress.
Good point. Okay, so let's imagine ideas validated, plans in place, maybe some initial funding secured. What's the next massive piece of the puzzle?
People, your team. Building a business, especially a startup, is almost never a solo mission.
It takes a village, or at least a good co-founder.
Pretty much. You need collaboration. It's incredibly rare for one person to have all the skills, all the energy, all the perspectives needed, especially as you grow.
And when you're looking for those first team members, what's most important? Is it just skills?
Skills matter, of course.
Yeah.
But honestly, in the early days, passion and grit might be even more crucial.
Grit, meaning?
That resilience, that determination to push through the tough times, because there will be tough times. You need people who truly believe in the mission, who aren't just there for a paycheck.
That makes sense.
And starting with co-founders who complement your skills. That's often a really smart move. If you're the tech person, maybe you need someone strong on sales or marketing.
Filling the gaps.
Exactly. And thinking about how you all work together right from the start. That's huge.
You mean company culture, even when it's just 2 or 3 people?
Absolutely. Culture starts forming on day one, whether you plan it or not. How do you communicate?
Yeah.
How do you make decisions? How do you handle disagreements? Being intentional about that early on sets the foundation. And there's that old startup saying, hire slow, fire fast.
Why is that so important early on?
Because in a tiny team, one wrong hire can have a massive negative impact. Their attitude, their work ethic, it affects everyone. So be careful bringing people in, but if it's clearly not working, you have to act decisively.
Right. Okay. Foundational pieces. Idea, plan, money, team. Now, the big moment, launching. What does that typically look like? Is it this huge, perfect unveiling?
Rarely. Often, the smart way to launch is with an MVP, a minimum viable product.
Minimum viable product. Okay, break that down.
It's basically the simplest version of your product or service that still delivers the core value, solves the main problem for your first customers.
So not all the bells and whistles.
Definitely not. The goal isn't perfection at this stage. It's getting something real out into the market so you can learn. You need to test your assumptions with actual users.
So the launch is really the start of another learning process.
Exactly. It's all about iteration.
Yes.
You launch the MVP, you gather feedback, tons of feedback, and then you adapt, refine, improve.
Listening seems key here.
Oh, absolutely critical. Those early users, the early adopters, their insights are gold. What do they love? What frustrates them? What's missing? You have to be willing to let their feedback shape the future direction, even if it means changing your original plans.
Makes sense. And then you actually have to tell people about this MVP, right? Marketing. Does that mean needing a huge budget from day one?
Not necessarily, no. Especially early on, smarts and creativity can beat a big budget.
How?
Well, think about leveraging social media effectively. Engaging with the right online communities. Maybe finding some relevant influencers who genuinely like your product. Creating useful content, blog posts, videos, whatever, that actually helps your target audience. And of course, encouraging word of mouth. Happy early customers can be your best marketers.
So being scrappy and targeted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A focused, creative approach often works better than just, throwing money at broad advertising.
And how do you know if any of that is actually working? How do you track progress?
Metrics. Data is your friend here. You absolutely need to track key numbers.
Like what kind of numbers?
Things like your customer acquisition cost, or CAC. How much does it cost you on average to get one new customer?
Okay.
Then their lifetime value, LTV. How much revenue do you expect to get from a customer over their whole relationship with you? Ideally, LTV should be much higher than CAC.
Right.
Also, your churn rate, what percentage of customers are leaving over a certain period? And conversion rates, how many people take a desired action, like signing up or making a purchase?
Wow. Okay. So those numbers tell the real story.
They give you objective insights. They show you what's working, what's not, and where you need to focus your efforts to improve. Gut feelings are important, but data helps you make informed decisions.
So let's fast forward a bit. You've launched, you've iterated, you're tracking metrics, you're getting some traction. What happens when you start thinking bigger about scaling?
Scaling is a whole different beast. It brings a new set of challenges. It's really about moving from doing everything manually and sort of ad hoc.
Which is how most startups begin.
Right. Moving from that to building sustainable systems and processes.
Meaning
Things like automating repetitive tasks where you can, standardizing workflows so things are done consistently, learning to delegate effectively, which is hard for many founders.
Yeah, letting go of control.
Exactly. You can't do it all yourself anymore. You need systems that allow the business to grow without relying solely on you or a handful of key people working crazy hours.
And I imagine growth itself creates new problems.
Oh, absolutely. Your team gets bigger, communication gets more complex, maybe the early culture starts to shift. Customer expectations might go up as you become more established, and success attracts attention, so competition often increases. The challenges definitely evolve.
And the founder's role has to change too, right?
Massively. In the beginning, you're the chief cook and bottle washer. You're doing everything. As you scale, your role has to shift towards leading, guiding, setting strategy, and empowering your team to execute.
From operator to leader.
That's a great way to put it. It requires a different skill set. And it's a transition many founders find challenging but necessary.
Now, we should probably address the elephant in the room. This whole journey. It's not always smooth sailing, is it? Setbacks happen.
Oh, they're pretty much guaranteed. It's just part of the process. You'll have launches that flop, funding rounds that fall through, maybe internal conflicts.
Yeah.
Things go wrong. Experiments fail. That's the reality of trying to build something new and innovative.
So it's less about if setbacks happen and more about how you deal with them when they do.
Exactly that. Your response is what matters. Can you pick yourself up? Can you learn from what went wrong? That ability to bounce back, that resilience, is maybe one of the most important traits an entrepreneur can have.
And it helps to remember you're not alone in facing challenges.
Absolutely. Read the stories of successful founders. Almost all of them faced major hurdles, failures, moments where it looked like it was all over.
So what does it take to navigate those tough times?
Resilience, definitely. Humility, being able to admit mistakes or that things didn't work out as planned, and a real, genuine willingness to learn from the experience and adapt your approach going forward. It's not failure if you learn from it, right?
That's a good perspective. Okay, as we start to bring this together, thinking about everything we've discussed, if you had to give one core piece of advice to someone listening who has that idea and is serious about pursuing it, what would it be?
Just start. Seriously, start.
Don't wait for perfection.
Don't wait for perfection. Don't wait until you have all the answers or the perfect plan. Take one small, concrete step forward today. Write down the problem your idea solves. Talk to one potential customer. Just do something. You learn so much more by doing than by just thinking.
That's powerful. Get out of your head and into action. Any other key lesson that stands out?
Listen more than you speak.
Tell me more about that.
Listen really carefully to your potential customers. They'll tell you what they need. Listen to your team. They have valuable insights. Listen to the market. What trends are emerging? What are competitors doing? There's so much information available if you just make a conscious effort to truly listen.
So act, but also listen and learn constantly.
That's the loop, really. Act, learn, adapt, act again. And remember, building a meaningful business is rarely quick. It's a long game.
A marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pace yourself. Be persistent. Celebrate the small wins along the way.
This has been incredibly insightful, really breaking down that journey from just an idea to, well, hopefully a thriving business. Thanks for walking us through it.
My pleasure. It's a fascinating, challenging, and potentially really rewarding path to take.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, maybe take a moment now. Think about how these stages, these insights apply to your own ideas, your own ambitions.
Yeah, and maybe chew on this final thought. What's the absolute smallest, simplest first step you could genuinely take today to push your idea forward, even just a tiny bit?
Ooh, good one.
And related to that, based on our chat, is there one core assumption you're holding about your idea or your market or your customers that maybe,
Just maybe,
you need to question right now?